chapter 22, part 2. So we are done with the 50s, and the 60s are still abstract expressions, and that's still happening, but we're starting to get into some other things. Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg, and we have two examples in the book from, 55 and 59 for Rauschenberg. And you might remember, this I think going to be on your final, or did I put it in the midterm? I am not remembering. I beg your pardon at this point. But Rauschenberg starts as an abstract expressionist painter, and then he becomes more of an assemblage or found object artist. Remember, found object assemblage is Dadaist from the beginning, and that is Duchamp. Duchamp starts that, and then a lot of time goes by, and then we start to explore some of Duchamp's work, and these artists are getting interested in those ideas, especially John Cage, but he is a musician, so it's a little bit confusing. These guys all go, Rauschenberg, Johns, who's our encaustic painter that we like, and John Cage, musician. Merce Cunningham's another one, he's a dancer. They all meet at Black Mountain College. Black Mountain College, I know it's a long-winded thing, right? Black Mountain College is the beneficiary of all of the Bauhaus artists and teachers that left Europe, okay? Because remember we're talking about how all these interesting Europeans and all these talented people leave because of World War II. So the Bauhaus influences, oh God, I'm forgetting there's another New York school. I want to say it was Pratt, but I'm not sure if that's right. But they split up. Some of them go to one college in, Yale, I think. Yale in Connecticut. So Yale School of Art, some of them go there. Some of them go to Black Mountain College. And these guys all meet, Rauschenberg, Johns, Cage, and Merce Cunningham, and some others. There's a long list, actually. But those are the ones who make it bigger, so we know more about them. Meet there, and they decide to mix up things, and there they get into Dadaism to a degree, and Rauschenberg, I'll give this away, starts out as a photographer, and he completely changes into an abstract expressionist painter, and then he does assemblage, and he still calls his paintings, or his assemblage pieces that are very 3D, he still calls them paintings, okay? So Neo-Dada is to do a bit with this era that's post-war, jolting us into an awareness, not you all, but us all, I should say. So here we are with Jasper Johns, and this looks very, very current, right? 1955, encaustic. So he's exploring here, going way back in time, 2,000 years, and kind of reinvigorating this encaustic process. We don't see this really in any big way in any important artist until Jasper Johns in 1955. So 2,000 years go by, and bam, here comes encaustic back into modern painting. Exploration was encouraged at Black Mountain College, that's part of it, and using some other found objects. So we have some masks that were reproduced, and this is part of a cabinet that the hinge is left on. So Johns plays around with some of the found objects combined with painting. He and Rauschenberg are very close. They were lovers for I think a pretty good long while. So their work has a lot of similarities at a certain point. One of the aspects that Johns liked about encaustic was the translucent quality, because it's waxy and you can see bits of paper coming through. So there's some newspaper underneath here, and you can kind of see the lines of text. When you see this in person, you can actually read it, and that's true of his flag piece and his numbers piece, and I'm forgetting the titles on those, but really wonderful work, very prolific. I know we're just looking at one, but get a sense of our plaster faces in the wood box here, mixing things up, old with the new, and putting objects with paintings. Oh my goodness, he's breaking all the rules. So we don't really know where to put Rauschenberg and Johns, quite frankly, and a lot of other, like pop art claims them, assemblage, claims them, and abstract expressionists claim them. Although, and the hard edge, a little bit here would claim Johns, but not really, because the intent is really different with what he's doing. This is representational, it's a target, but it's still just a bunch of circles, so you can kind of get away with the abstract expressionism. Okay, assemblage and happening. So we've already done this with combine paintings with Rauschenberg. He's already doing that in the 50s. And then a lot of people really take to that work. So in some people, their theory is there's Warhol and then there's Rauschenberg. There's these two different sort of environments where these two really productive artists are influencing art. And Rauschenberg is much more about actual painting and combining objects and making statements in that way. And then Andy Warhol, as we know, with pop art, is making silk-screened images of famous people. Happenings are another thing that's happening. It sounds kind of funny, but there's no art objects. So what has come to pass, especially in New York, and it's true today, famous painters are selling things for thousands, hundreds, tens of thousands, $100,000 painting, and they're hanging it over the couch. Somebody will buy it, hang it over the couch, and not really understand it or care about it. And so some artists are frustrated with this, and they start to make installation art, performance art, and happenings, and different things that can't be bought, if that makes sense. Performance art, video, that kind of thing. A happening is a limited time period for an art object, and Capro is the king of this. He also did, and I participated in a reenactment in the 50-year anniversary of his ice piece. He made like a little building, like a brick building out of blocks of ice, those big blocks. I think they're 50 pounds. I can't remember. But anyway, I helped with that, and then it melted and disappeared. So in this one, he's in the courtyard, and you can't even see what she's doing up here. It's just about being near the activity. There's many other performance art pieces that he has people do. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So his idea that it's nonsensical and that you can't experience it, but it lasts for just a short amount of time. I really fell down on that one. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit tired, but I have to keep going because I have a deadline. Okay, so the art of the 60s and 70s, we get into pop art. Now remember, this is Warhol, this is Lichtenstein, and Rauschenberg gets included in this category at times. And the pop artists are taking mass-produced images and objects. It's about consumerism. It's about art and life becoming closer to one another, and that is where Rauschenberg gets included because he's including a lot of junk from the real world. That's where his pop sort of certification, if you will, comes from. So this is Gold Marilyn, 1962 silkscreen on synthetic polymer paint on canvas. This is 6 feet high, and then we have the famous silkscreen. He also does a multiple one of her head. Influenced, by the way, from Yayoi Kusama, who is huge now. She originally did the multiple imagery thing, and Warhol stole it back in the 60s. And she went back to her mental institution in Japan, and nobody knew he stole it, and he never apologized. So anyway, we have our silkscreen, and it's slightly off, and it's got simplified colors, and it's surrounded in gold. This is a publicity photograph. That was the other thing I wanted to mention. Okay. So then we also get into hard edge painting. I know we're skimming this stuff, but you don't have a lot of information that you're going to need from this chapter for the final. Hard edge painting. So it's a variation of color field painting, but we get sharp, precise edges, and photorealism is sort of a reaction to abstract expressionism. They're like, okay, somebody has to paint something real at some point. I'm over it. So that starts to happen. Chuck Close is our photorealistic painter. This is a painting. It's not a photograph. It's a painting. I'm going to say it again. This is a painting. It is not a picture and a photograph. A picture, you never want to say picture in the art world. That doesn't refer to anything. There is no such thing as a picture. Always say photograph or painting or drawing or whatever it is, okay? Um, it just is, it just shows that you're somebody who'd never studied art, so don't do it. All right, so this is Phil. This is 9 feet high. It's massive. Giant head. Now, from a distance, this looks absolutely perfect. As you get a little closer, you can start to see some of the brush strokes. But look at the shading, the teeth, everything is just photorealistic. One of the things with Chuck Close is that he has poor facial recognition, if not no facial recognition, even with his own family. So he paints these portraits and he gets really intimate with these subjects, particularly friends of his and people he knows, because he wants to really know what they look like. So he grids this out, and this is a thing you do in beginning drawing. You draw like a bunch of grids and a bunch of little lines and lines this way, and then you take a photograph and you draw exactly what's in each corner, and that's how he proceeds. He does this. Really tremendous. This is black and white paint. Maybe there's a bit of tint and tone in there, or sorry, a bit of coloration, like a yellowish color perhaps, but it's all black and white paint. Okay, minimalism and post-minimalism. Oh, and by the way, our hard edge guy, you want to look at Stella. Frank Stella, it's 22.11 is the image. Once you see it, you'll always know what a Stella looks like. They never change. Okay, minimalism and post-minimalism. So minimalism is to try to get rid of representation once and for all, and they're making objects that could be understood as nothing but themselves. Also with minimalism, they're using manufactured objects, or sorry, manufactured materials that they go and get at like a hardware store or a metal supply store, and they weld it together. So this is formed galvanized iron, right? So he would go into a construction store, say, like a Home Depot, and say, I need, this much or whatever, and he cuts it up or has them cut it, welds it together, and puts lacquer on there, which is also automotive paint. And that's it. It's done. Okay? If you ever go down to Marfa, Texas, that is where Donald Judd has all of his works, and they're all quite similar. Some are made of concrete. That's another material he would use. And if you watch the, was it on Hulu, I think it is, I Love Dick, they changed Donald's name to Dick, and it's kind of about him. It's fictional, but it's based on reality and is based on the minimalist artist Donald Judd, who is no longer with us. So I think that's why that thing was that mini-series was done. Oh, it's dark. It's about the art world. It's very cynical, but it's very good. Okay, so minimalism couldn't get any more boring, geometric, and materials that are made from the hardware store. Process art and installation. I'm going to stop here.